Welcome back to day number 2 on our mini series on stress. Today we're talking about chronic stress. This is something that I experienced. And actually, when I was going through infertility, I actually wouldn't even have said I was stressed out. But looking back, the theme for me and how this has impacted my health has been chronic stress. So I wanted you to dig into this with me and see where chronic stress may be impacting your health and what you can do to minimize your risk and some simple steps that you can implement today to start to begin to heal. Excited for you to listen to this episode. I regularly speak with 5 to 10 couples per week who are struggling to have their baby. And although we want to help everyone, we only have 4 spots available per month to work with us. I would like to invite you and your partner to a Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery Call. And this call is for you if you meet at least one of these criteria. You've been trying to get pregnant for at least 2 years. You've been through at least one failed IUI or IVF. This calls for action takers. If you're not ready and you wait, the risk is you'll need to wait 2 to 3 months for a spot to open up. If you're seriously considering working with us, go to FabFertile, F-A-B Fertile, and click on Book a Free Call. That's FabFertile, F-A-B Fertile, and click on Book a Free Call. Then you'll be all booked in and ready to spend 30 minutes to give you the action plan to getting pregnant naturally. There's a lot of information about which supplements are right for fertility. And like most couples I speak with, you are probably taking a lot of supplements. But are these supplements optimizing or harming your fertility? That's why we recommend professional grade supplements without harmful dyes, fillers, or top allergens so that you can prepare your body in the best way for pregnancy. And as you may know, we take a functional approach to fertility. And while supplements are included in your customized protocols, which are based on testing, they are only part of the equation because there's no pill you can take that will out-supplement the basics, such as poor diet, dysregulated sleep, either moving too much or not enough, and not dealing with chronic stress. So we do recommend basic supplements for both men and women. And these are essential starters that you need to have right now to optimize your preconception health. And I'm excited to offer you a special discount at our Fab Fertile store. You'll receive 15% discount on our professional grade supplements. So simply go to Fab Fertile Store. That's F-A-B fertilestore.com to access the basic supplements so that you can prepare your body for pregnancy success without wasting time and money on supplements that may not be right for you. Go to Fab Fertile Store. That's fabfertilestore.com and save 15% on your order. Hey there. Thanks so much for listening to the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast. And I've got a favor to ask you. If you are enjoying learning about the functional approach to fertility, consider going to iTunes and rating and reviewing the podcast. This is how it helps the show reach more people that are struggling with infertility, knowing that there's another approach that really can get to the bottom of why it's not working in the first place. So all you need to do is, if you're on the app or the desktop, just go in and consider leaving a 5-star rating and leave a review. And there is step-by-step instructions in the show notes showing you exactly how to do that. So if you can just take a few minutes, just take the few minutes right now. You can pause this recording, come back, leave the review. It would really mean the world to me and help others that are on the fertility journey as well. Take care. I didn't need to go to donor eggs. Obviously, I don't regret it. I have beautiful children. I could have done things differently, restored. I was still cycling back in my 20s. I could have looked at my health, the environmental toxins, the stress I was under.
Many women are being told their eggs are too old. That's often merely an assumption that's not based on actual evidence. The reason being that there is no direct test of egg quality. You can't test egg quality.
It's the man who's got a food sensitivity or he has a zinc deficiency.
Like, there can be a root cause to these symptoms that are, quote unquote, period problems, that the doctor will pass you a pill without any question of why.
And some part of you knows that if you can reframe your journey from not want to struggle, or if it is struggle, learn how to embrace the struggle. Learn how to embrace it.
Most conditions in the child occur during the 9 months of development. It's the genetic switches are turned on or turned off, and they're pre-programmed. So you are in such a powerful, amazing position to do amazing things for your kids.
Why is IVF the first step? Because we believe it should be the last step. Welcome to Get Pregnant Naturally, where functional medicine and natural fertility solutions will help you get pregnant and have your baby. Hey there, I'm Sarah Clark, founder of Fab Fertile and your host. I believe the functional approach is the first step for anyone struggling with infertility, and my aim is to help you get pregnant naturally. Today, I'm welcoming Justine Altman back to the podcast, and we are on day number 2 of our mini series on stress. And we're digging into the impact that mental, emotional stress has on your body. And what you'll learn in this episode is how chronic stress impacts all systems of your body, including reproductive health, and what you can do to minimize your risk, why addressing situational stress with infertility, obviously having an infertility diagnosis, that can be stressful in itself. And then we see many people that have experienced mood imbalances for years, such as ADHD or ADD, brain fog, anxiety, depression, and why this matters for your fertility, how to address chronic stress with simple techniques you can implement today so that you can prepare for pregnancy success. Definitely check out episode number 6 for a functional medicine 101 talk, plus a look at some of the tools we use to help couples conceive. And Justine is part of my team here at Fab Fertile. She's an integral part of our couples coaching program, which uses functional lab testing, diet and lifestyle changes to dramatically improve conception. So if you're struggling with infertility, your body is desperately trying to tell you something, and focusing on your health will either help you get pregnant naturally, or if you do need to go to the fertility clinic, it will improve your chances of success. And thanks so much for listening. I'm so thankful that you're here. Make sure you hit subscribe. And if you know someone else who is on the fertility journey, please share this podcast with them. So I've talked before about, obviously, when I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure, insufficiency, and so then years later discovered I had these food sensitivities and gut infections and then chronic stress. And actually, when I was going through infertility, it's kind of ridiculous to look at it now. I actually wouldn't even have said I was stressed because I'm such a doer. I just, got the diagnosis, was told that it was donor eggs was my only option, went right to the clinic. We were lucky on the first transfer that, it worked for our daughter. I had 2 embryos left over and wanted the kids close together, went back in. That's when I was super stressed because I had this plan. I wanted our kids close together. That didn't work and went on a separate list for another donor. And then lucky enough on 3 years later to have our son. I know for me that this chronic stress thing has been there my whole life. And just because I just keep pushing through and I've got typically a lot of energy and can get a lot of crap done, I don't consider myself a person that, experiences a lot of stress. But then as my thyroid started to become dysfunction, and we'll talk about this in the next episode, but, as my hair started to fall out and all sorts of other things going on with my body, I know now that for me, chronic stress is an underlying cause for a lot of some of the issues, physical issues that I have, the biochemical issues that I've ended up experiencing, which we'll talk in the next episode. So today I just wanted to kind of have you sort of look at some of these things that we're going to talk about and how this can then be related to your fertility and how it really impacts the whole body. Because a lot of times, we get stuck on that diagnosis and not looking at all the other things that are going on in your body. We don't correlate them. And it's that whole conventional analogy where we go see the dermatologist for the skin rash. We go see the gastroenterologist for the constipation of the digestive issues. We go see the rheumatologist for our joint problems. We go see, the psychiatrist when we have mood imbalances. Well, those are all clues. In the functional approach, we look at the whole body and how do we do that mind, body, spirit approach? Justine, what's your take?
We say it over and over, but everything is connected. Everything that's not good. Our bodies, they want to work at 100%. It wants everything just to be humming along perfectly, flawlessly. And when it's not, those are clues that the body's giving us, right? That something isn't quite right. Some of you know my story. Back when I was first diagnosed with some fertility issues, I had PCOS, and we did some of the testing, right? So my ovaries were intact and there was nothing wrong with my uterus. Everything's working okay. There are plenty of follicles. There were in my case. My tubes were clear. There was no reason why I shouldn't be able to get pregnant, except there absolutely was a reason, and it was stress. It was all the kinds of stress. And I was experiencing a ton of stress in all the other ways, right? I had a lot of physical pain, a lot of digestive issues, a lot of headaches, a lot of skin issues. I had all the things, but we couldn't figure out what was wrong with me from a fertility standpoint. And, we had done the semen analysis and that was good, right? And so it's like, why am I not getting pregnant? Why am I not ovulating? And it was stress. It was all stress related, right? And so once I was able to sort of really get to the bottom of stress and really reduce stress in a big way, then fertility and pregnancy came easy for me. But ultimately, it's that there were no structural issues. And so we know that stress of all kinds has a really dramatic impact. And especially if there's no particular reason, no sort of direct cause that we can blame, so if tubes are blocked, obviously we know that that's going to prevent pregnancy, right? Or if there's an ovary that had to go for some reason because something happened, right? Then we know obviously what the challenges are. Then there are actual structural things that are preventing us from being able to get pregnant. But in the absence of that, it's absolutely related to stress of some kind. Stress for you, stress for your partner, or stress for the both of you absolutely is contributing to fertility.
Yeah, and chronic stress may lead to insulin resistance, diminished sex drive, and infertility. So if you can just kind of take us on a little journey here about how we talk about the adrenal glands and how that impacts all of our bodies. So when we're feeling stress, kind of what happens?
Yeah. So stress of every kind, our bodies are these primitive beings, and stress of every kind causes our bodies, our adrenal glands, to produce a lot of cortisol, our stress hormone. And it does that to protect us. So cortisol and adrenaline, those are the things that, if you're rock climbing and a boulder lands on top of you and you're going to be stuck and starve to death if you don't get this boulder off of your leg, and you have this superhuman strength to get it off of you. That's what our cortisol does, is it really gives us the ability to have additional strength. It reduces pain. It makes us more alert. Our heart has the ability to beat faster. Our lungs have the ability to expand even further. And so really it's sort of giving us this like superhuman strength. But to do that, just like with pregnancy, it's a whole lot of resources. Pregnancy is a whole lot of resources. Having our cortisol be risen like that in order to keep us safe and protected and feeling okay takes a lot of resources. And to do that, the body prioritizes that over everything else. It prioritizes it over our blood sugar control. It prioritizes it over our digestive tract. It prioritizes it over our reproductive system, over our immune system, right? And so when that's happening, those areas of the body aren't getting as many resources. Our bodies literally limit blood flow to the reproductive system and to the gut and to those other areas that don't matter ultimately. It's a crude way of putting it, but ultimately if we have to survive the moment. And so if we've got that boulder that's, pinning us down and no one's going to find us out in the woods, or if we're being chased by a big scary animal or whatever it might be, our body has to put all the resources into surviving that moment, or it really doesn't matter whether we have the ability to have offspring. It's a really smart, adaptive thing that the body does, but ultimately it leaves us with challenges like infertility or, low thyroid, challenges with weight. That's when we start to see the gastroenterologist and the dermatologist and the rheumatologist and all those specialists. But ultimately, we know that it's really all connected to the same system, and that the solution, ultimately we want to sort of nourish some of those systems that have been ignored for a while back to good health. But the real solution is we have to stop the flow of stress, right? We have to get the stress off the body so that your body can say, okay, we're safe, we're calm, we don't have to put out all this cortisol, and we can refocus our attention on having all the systems sort of firing at 100% again. And when we have some of those other things that get caused as a symptom of stress, right? So we eat the wrong kinds of foods, and that causes insulin resistance. And when our cortisol is elevated, we end up with the diminished sex drive because our reproductive system is not being prioritized. All of these things lead to even more stress, right? And so when we eat a piece of food that spikes our blood sugar, our insulin rushes in to fix the problem, right? Because blood sugar that's too high has potential to be very dangerous. And insulin rushes in and it shoots our blood sugar way back down. And blood sugar that's too low has potential to be very dangerous too. And so we're constantly on this blood sugar roller coaster. Sometimes we're constantly on this hormone roller coaster. And every time that happens, cortisol has to rush into our savior, to be our savior, right? It's the one that's sending the signal for the insulin to rush in when our blood sugar spikes too high. When our blood sugar goes too low, cortisol again is sending the signal to the body like, okay, we've got to raise this up. Otherwise we're in trouble here. And so when that's happening, that cortisol is happening constantly, right? And so it's always up. Our body's always prioritizing this cortisol for our stress. And it's always forcing all of the other sort of, I guess what I would call secondary systems to take a back seat, right? Our fertility, our immune system, our digestion, all of that is all taking a back seat. So it's really critically important that we reduce stress, especially the biggest stressors on us, in all the ways we can, right? And so when it comes to food, it's about eating nutrient dense foods and about, avoiding the things that spike our blood sugar sugar and avoiding the things that cause inflammation. It's about getting enough sleep. It's about getting the right amount of exercise every day as much as we can, and about reducing mental, emotional, physical stressors as much as we can.
Yeah. And with the fertility journey, so obviously there can be chronic stress. Obviously getting the diagnosis in itself can be stressful. And then depending on how long you've tried for, even if you've, only tried for a short period of time, you're past the point when you started trying, you wanted to have your baby. You didn't want to wait. And so that can be stressful. So depression or anxiety there, situational. But then also we see many people that there's situational depression and anxiety, but there can also be depression, anxiety, ADHD, brain fog, those mood imbalances that we see that have been going on for years and years, even before the infertility diagnosis, which then the neurotransmitter dysfunction. We see that a lot with the themes of the couples that we work with, typically the low AMH and high FSH and DOR and POI or POF, that there was a mood imbalance going on beforehand. And so that's where the functional approach really digs into, well, why is there that there to begin with? And obviously in the conventional side of things, if there's a mood imbalance or mental health issue, the first line of defense is medication, where that can obviously be beneficial, but it's not a Band-Aid approach. It's not addressing as to, well, why is it there to begin with? Why are your neurotransmitters? Why is there dysfunction? And I've done many podcast episodes on this. You can search ones on depression, anxiety, and how it's related back to gut health. So a lot of information there on the podcast to dig further, full episodes I've done on this. But for this topic, the chronic stress of dealing with mental health diagnosis beforehand. Can you talk a little bit about that, Justine?
Yeah, so it's one more form of stress. And if it's something that's sort of clouding your everyday, your everything, right? And it's easy for that to happen, especially if we've already gotten one of these diagnoses, right? If we've already been told, like, you don't really have any options here, and now it's time for you to look at donor eggs or time for you to look at adoption. It's like our whole world has just sort of, like, our whole life plan has been taken out of our hands. And ultimately, that's part of our mission here, is that we're trying to be able to educate people to be able to take their health and their fertility back into their own hands, right? So that it's within their control and they have the ability to make adjustments that's going to make a big change there. But again, that stress, when we talk about stress, it's always the same, whether it's mental, emotional stress or it's, chemical stress of any kind. It all does the same thing. It all spikes that cortisol. And then constantly our body is not putting its attention on some of those systems in the body that really matter to our overall well-being, right? Because if our cortisol is up, it's taking away from our reproductive system. If our cortisol is up, it's taking away from our digestive system, which causes it's a vicious cycle, right? Because if our digestive tract isn't getting all the attention it needs, then we're not doing a good job absorbing all the nutrients from our food. And then our body's sort of starving for resources, right? We just don't have enough. We need so many units of this vitamin and that mineral every day, and we just straight up don't have enough for our body to do everything the way that it's supposed to be doing.
And that functional medicine matrix, you can look up at the Institute for Functional Medicine, but really the different factors to look at being digestion, the immune system, the ability to detoxify, the mitochondria function. Anything you'd like to say there about how chronic stress then impacts all those different nodes on the matrix?
Yeah, so it's just like every bit of stress leads to every other bit of stress, right? So just how, like with the when digestion's impaired, that ultimately ends up impairing everything. And not only do we not absorb our foods, our nutrients very well, but we end up with an unfriendly group of bacteria in our gut, and they do bad things, right? Like they steal some of our nutrients and they produce byproducts that are toxic to us, and that causes more gut dysfunction. And basically just this idea that all of it is connected, right? Most of our immune systems in our gut, everything seems to come back to the gut in one way or another. But ultimately everything gets limited. Our ability to detox gets limited. Our energy gets limited. And it's really just this, our body continues to adapt to the environment it's been given. And when the environment it's been given is fast foods that we've picked up, or we're having Subway for lunch every day or whatever it might be. And then we are, we're working too late, and we've got our face in a screen all day long, right? So we're at our computer all day, and then we've got our phone in between, and we've got our phone in the evening and the TV in the evening. And we want to watch one last episode because now we have the ability to watch unlimited numbers of episodes all day, every day these days. So all of those things are happening. We're we're not stacking the deck in our favor as far as really making sure that we're giving the body all of the resources and all of the rest that it needs.
Yeah, and stressors can be real or perceived. And real or imagined, when you perceive something as stressful, it creates the same response in the body. So that's, I mean, if you view something as traumatic, if you view something as stressful, then that's what it is for you. And each person has their own level of tolerance. It is to become like, I know now for me, it shows up that I'm like cranky at my husband, or I'm like getting angry at the dishwasher, or I just feel like snippy on things that I should be able to like flow through. That's when I know, like, oh, I need to pull back. I need to, what have I done too much of? And before I would have been like, I'm not pulling back. I wouldn't even have known those clues. I would have just kept pushing forward until, then I had to change my diet and I had all these gut infections. And at the core of it was chronic stress. So the body, like, she is whispering to you every day, desperately trying to tell you something. And when you ignore the whispers, it'll start shouting at you in the form of disease. So it is to listen in deeply. It's not, we get stuck on that diagnosis and myopically focus in. I've yet to speak to someone. And even then, when we look at their health history, people worry that, there'll be nothing there to work on, that, everything will be fine. That has never been the case. And even talking to people when they say, oh, by the way, I have an autoimmune disease, or, oh, by the way, I've been constipated for years. You've got those, toxins recirculating in your body. With an autoimmune disease, then your body wants to again survive, not procreate. And some people obviously with autoimmune diseases can they don't struggle with infertility. Others, the ones that we're working with, that's the case for them. So it is, again, seeing where you're out of alignment and where can you pull back. And the first step is awareness. And so we've talked about some of the different strategies to help with that. So EFT, which is tapping. There's a whole episode on the emotional freedom technique. So you can definitely go check that out. I've got a number of episodes on meditation and some meditation strategies. You can check that out. Fertility yoga, which is typically, it's slow. So hatha or yin or restorative. So it's not you doing vinyasas and flows and hot yoga like Bikram yoga. It's slower form of yoga, which may have you wanting to run out the room, but that's the point, to kind of stay with it. Therapy to really, if you've got some crap to deal with maybe in your relationship or whatever it may be, if there's trauma or childhood trauma, digging into that with, having someone to help you explore it. Coaching, obviously, was part of our Fat Fertile method. We have a fertility coach to help you, identify what could be holding you back and helping you move forward. Havening, I just interviewed someone who's an expert on havening, and really that actually helps with childhood trauma. And it's really it goes through similar to, so it's like healing touch, and then helping to move some of the traumatic, a lot of childhood trauma out of your body. So that can be something to look into. Movement, just even moving can help with, because again, we're in the sedentary lifestyle. Sleep, Justine says, like, sleep trumps sleep over everything. If it's exercise or sleep, it's sleep. So, prioritizing sleep, getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, breathing, like even just taking a breath, putting it on your phone, saying, every hour I'll step back and take a breath. Progressive muscle relaxation is kind of cool too, where you're like, I'm going to relax my toe and then my knee and then my leg and all the way up my arm. So that's kind of a neat thing. John Cabot's Zen has a really cool one to look that up. Zen with a Z-I-N-N. Sauna, which I would love to have a little sauna in here, but I don't. And red light therapy can be really helpful. Anything you wanted to say on some of those ones to help, Justine?
Yeah, and Reiki. We have Reiki as part of
Reiki. Yeah, which is awesome. Like, I took the session so we just go back and check out the session with the podcast I did with Nancy Weiss. And we talked all about Reiki, and she's a clairvoyant, and really that whole spiritual piece of, like the signs and the synchronicities. And you start looking for this stuff. It starts showing up. So definitely things to help. Obviously not all at once. Like, that's just an overwhelming list I just gave you, but just pick one thing that resonates with you and do it tonight. And it might just be that you're going to, close down the Netflix show. And, I've been having a small Outlander, obsession. So, not keep binging on the Netflix, and actually go to bed and see how you feel the next day when you're not up till all hours binging your favorite show.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on that one, Justine?
Yeah, it's just that, like you said, Sarah, it's not about doing all of these things, right? This is sort of a menu, right? You pick the ones that seem to jump out at you as like, ooh, that sounds okay, or I might like to try that. And if you are feeling overwhelmed, that's really why we're here, right? Is that we don't want you to feel like you have to navigate all of this on your own. It is a lot. It's a lot of information. We spew a lot of information, a lot of education at you guys every time. And we don't want you to feel overwhelmed. But there is sort of a method to the madness, right? And there's a hierarchy of like which things are the most important. Like Sarah just mentioned, it's sleep trumps exercise, right? If you have to make a decision in your day, you can have one or the other, then we want you to pick sleep. But it's hard to know those things on your own. It's hard to navigate those things on your own. So we're here if you need help.
So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about our FabFertile method. So we have access to functional lab testing. We ship the lab testing worldwide. We have food sensitivity testing as part of our method. Using blood, we look at stool testing, looking at the DNA of your stool. We do hormone testing, so looking at your hormones using urine. We're doing hair tissue mineral analysis, looking at the status of your minerals and heavy metal exposure, and then blood chemistry review, not to diagnose, but to educate, looking at your blood chemistry using functional reference ranges, which they're just tighter reference ranges that flags disease or illness earlier. Again, we are not diagnosing, we are educating. We also include coaching to help you and your partner fast track your success, to help you implement these targeted diet and lifestyle changes that we would be giving you based on the testing. So at the end of the program, you'll either be happily pregnant, or if you do need to go to the fertility clinic, you'll dramatically improve your success because you have optimized your health for both you and your partner. And we specialize in tough cases like low AMH, high FSH, premature ovarian insufficiency or failure, and diminished ovarian reserve. Addressing the stressors on the body is key for pregnancy success, and it's looking at the whole body, and we're digging deeper. And so what are those missed healing opportunities? So there's no downside to focusing on your health. You'll either get pregnant naturally or improve your success with IVF with your own eggs. So if you're ready to take a targeted, customized, functional approach to your fertility, just book your call by going to FabFertile, F-A-B Fertile. Click on book a free call. This call is for you and your partner. Space is very limited. We have 4 spots available each month to work with you. So that's FabFertile, F-A-B Fertile, and click on book a free call. I regularly speak with 5 to 10 couples per week who are struggling to have their baby. And although we want to help everyone, we only have 4 spots available per month to work with us. I would like to invite you and your partner to a Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery Call. And this call is for you if you meet at least one of these criteria. You've been trying to get pregnant for at least 2 years. You've been through at least one failed IUI or IVF. This calls for action takers. If you're not ready and you wait, the risk is you'll need to wait 2 to 3 months for a spot to open up. If you're seriously considering working with us, go to FabFertile, F-A-B Fertile, and click on book a free call. That's FabFertile, F-A-B Fertile, and click on book a free call. Then you'll be all booked in and ready to spend 30 minutes to give you the action plan to getting pregnant naturally. You may be taking supplements that instead of optimizing your fertility, may be harming it. That's why we recommend professional grade supplements without harmful dyes, fillers, or top allergens. Simply go to FabFertile Store, that's FABFertileStore.com to receive a 15% discount on our basic supplement recommendations for preconception health. That's FabFertileStore.com. The Get Pregnant Naturally podcast, including show notes and links, provides information with respect to healthy living, nutrition, lab testing, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified physician for medical advice and always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.